welcome to an introduction to inclusion with children with diverse needs in early childhood education. My name is Elena Miranda, and I'll be your instructor for this semester. I wanted to start off our lecture with a song, so I'll ask you all to get up off your seats and join. If you don't know the words, they will be on the screen for you.
It's always fun to be with friends. Let's get together more often. The more we get together, the more we get together, the happier we'll be. 'Cause your friends are my friends and my friends are your friends. The more we get together, the happier we'll be.
Okay, so you can have a seat again. The reason why I chose to start off the class with this song is because we're talking about inclusion, and part of inclusion is a feeling of belongingness and togetherness and people wanting to be together, and for children it's for them wanting to play together. So I've outlined for you here on the board what our objectives are for the class. And the first one is to define inclusive education. Then we'll demonstrate the value of inclusive education and describe the barriers of providing inclusive education. And we'll tick them off as we go along so you'll know when we've met those. So the first thing I want you to do is get out a piece of paper. You're going to do a little independent exercise. I want you, without talking, to answer the following questions on a sheet of paper. When in your life have you felt connected or included in a group context? And how did that make you feel? And I'll ask that you not use family as an example. And then when in your life have you felt disconnected or excluded in a group context, and how did that make you feel? And I'll give you about 2 minutes to complete this, and be prepared to share your answers. Okay, so what did you come up with? What are some things that you feel when you're included? Okay. I heard happy and special and excited. What else? Good. Good about yourself and accepted. You put down for when I'm excluded, I feel sad and heartbroken. What else? Disappointed and angry. Good. So the reason why I did this, I made you complete this exercise, is because I want you to know from the front that the most important thing about inclusion is you, the educator, the teacher. We have an impact to leave long-lasting feelings and emotions for children, whether those be good or bad. And we want children to remember us for the good feelings we left them with. We want them to remember how they felt like they belonged, how they felt like they were represented in the classroom, and how they felt like they were just a part of that community. So I want to define inclusion in a broader sense. It's to ensure that all individuals, regardless of their abilities, characteristics, they are felt a part of, respected, valued, and represented in a group. So regardless of race, culture, ethnicity, size, weight, level of education, sexuality, people should feel like they are a part of a community, part of a classroom. Inclusion in terms of education means that children with special needs attend preschool, childcare, educational and recreational programs with their peers. Inclusion is about belonging and being valued and having choices. Inclusion is about accepting and valuing human diversity, and providing the necessary support so that all children and their families can successfully participate in the programs of their choice. So now if we look back at our objectives, we have completed the second objective, which is to define inclusion and demonstrate the importance of inclusion. So the first and second we have done. So now I want to continue to define inclusion, and I want you to think about what it is that defines inclusion. I'll give you a couple of minutes. So before class started, I put a marker beside each of you. You're going to come up with that marker, and you're going to write one word that you think defines inclusion. And I think it's important for you to know that in Canada, in Ontario, we don't actually have a standard definition of inclusion in terms of education. So every school board, every classroom, every teacher has his or her own definition in which they use in the classroom. So it's important that we look at definition of inclusion from all aspects. So when you're ready, I'd like you to come up and write your words on the board. Good, so you've all written a word up on the board that defines inclusion to you. You put words up there such as diverse need, modifications and adaptations, which means changing curriculum or changing how things are delivered, changing how students are expected to complete work in order to meet their needs. But what I want you to pay special attention to is your use of the words equity and equality. A lot of people think equity and equality mean the same thing, but they're actually very different. So equality means that everybody's treated the same. For example, you have two boys, one taller than the other. You would give both boys a stool to stand on to see over the fence into the playground. That's equality. They're both given the stool, so they're equal. Equity means the boy who is shorter gets the stool, and the boy who is taller does not, because the boy who is taller can see over the fence, but the boy who's shorter can't, so he's given something for him to support his needs. He needs the stool to look over the fence, the other boy doesn't. So that's what equitable means, is providing children or people with things they need to be successful. Sounds easy. Inclusion sounds like it's something that's happening or should be happening, but it's not. There are a lot of barriers. So there are both visible and invisible barriers to inclusion. An example of a visible barrier would be the environment. So if there's a child with a wheelchair, the environment might not be as accessible to that child as it is to other children. So maybe everything's very close together, and it's difficult for the child to get around because of the wheelchair. An invisible barrier would be something we can't see. So that would be something like finances, that would be something like attitudes. Teachers' attitudes are the most important invisible barriers. We all have biases that come with us, and those biases lead to attitudes. And attitudes can lead to positive or negative delivery of inclusion. So what I want you to do is I want you to get into groups of 4 and answer the following questions. What is a bias? What are 3 sources of bias? And what are 3 areas of bias? And I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Okay, so I'll ask you, what is a bias? Good, so it's a negative feeling or attitudes towards somebody. What are sources of bias? 3 of them. The media, good. TV, family, culture, religion, good. So all of these things instill these beliefs and attitudes in us, which lead to a bias. So an example would be, the media tells you that homosexuality is abnormal, so we have a bias towards homosexuals. And areas of bias would be, like I said, homosexuality, it could be same-sex families, it could be towards abilities, it could be towards gender, it could be towards a certain culture or religion. So if we have a bias, which would be a negative opinion about, say, homosexuality, that comes from our culture, our religion, the media, our family, then that would influence how we promote inclusion in our classroom, because maybe there's a child who has a family who's a same-sex couple, and we might not provide the same support to that family as we do to other families because we have bias. So the first step is being aware of our biases. That way we ensure we're providing an inclusive environment. So again, it sounds easy. First thing is to be aware of our biases and accept them. Then once we accept our biases, we're better able to connect with people. So if we accept homosexuality, we're better able to connect with families who are same sex. And then we can empathize, we can put ourselves in those family shoes, which makes us easier for us to support them. This all sounds easy. So my bias is homosexuality. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to talk to people who are in the same-sex relationship, and I'm going to learn about homosexuality, and then I'll be able to put my bias aside and work with them. It's not as easy as it sounds. So what I want you to do is I put in front of you a piece of paper. There are 10 individuals on that paper. Out of the 10, I want you as a group of 4 to choose 6 people, so 6 out of the 10 people who are going to survive and create a new world with you, because it's the end of the world. I want you to be prepared to discuss who you chose and why, and once you look at the list, you'll see that there's very little information that I've given you. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Okay, so as I said, you're asked to choose 6 out of the 10 individuals to be survivors in this new world with you, and we're given very limited information about who they are. So I'll now ask you, out of the 10 groups we have here, how many of you chose the law student? 4, 5 of the law student's wife, 6 for the pregnant teenager, 7 for the policeman, 2 for the clergyman, 3 for the physician, female physician, 9 for the violinist who was a drug addict and was in jail, 10 for the Asian college student, 1 for the former prostitute, and 5 for the gay architect. So you have to think to yourself, what made you choose these people? Or what made you not choose certain people? It's all based on biases. With very little information, you don't know who these people are. How are you able to decide who's going to survive and who wasn't? If we look at the former prostitute, only one of you chose her. Is it because it's some stereotypes we hold, is that maybe she has a disease and you don't want to bring that with you to the new world? Gay architect, 5 out of 10, that's not bad, but are there biases against gays? So that's just a sneak peek of how we can be aware of our biases, which then helps us to overcome them. So I want to end the class explaining to you why we talk about inclusion. This is Mitchell Wilson. He's 11 years old. He committed suicide in 2011 because he wanted to put an end to his torment he experienced at school. What did he do? What was his crime? He had muscular dystrophy. He was regarded by society as abnormal and different from the rest of us. He was attacked in November while out on a walk. His face was smashed into the pavement and an iPhone had he had borrowed from his father was stolen. So because of this, because this still happens every day, children are tormented based on their appearances, their abilities, their disabilities, their family. We have to talk about what is our role as educators. How do we ensure the safety and the belongingness that these children feel in our classrooms? So next week, we're going to talk about policies we have in Canada about inclusion, current models of inclusion for children with diverse needs, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about advocacy. So how do we as educators advocate for inclusion? How do we get a standard definition of inclusion to ensure that all schools and all classrooms practice inclusion? So for next week, I want you to read chapter 2 of your text and email me if you have any questions. Have a good day.